On January 21st, 1999, the President of Ukraine decreed the Day of Reunion of Ukraine, a government holiday celebrated every year on January 22nd to mark the political and historical significance of the 1919 treaty. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane on UATV channel explaining complex things in simple terms. Ukraine marks the 99th anniversary of signing the Unification Act on January 22nd, 2018. The act stated the territory of Ukraine, divided over the centuries into the West Ukrainian People's Republic and Dnieper, Ukraine will now become united. Dreams which the best sons of Ukraine fought and died for centuries have come true. From now on, there is one united and independent Ukrainian People's Republic. The unification had a practical and political dimensions, as both states needed the concentration of armed forces and mutual assistance to protect their territories from foreign military intervention, which at that time became an aggression. The fact of the legitimacy of the final reconciliation process that preceded the Unification Act also was very important. This was a very important act because people of united Ukrainian territories were not involved in a fratricidal war during which Ukrainians were killing each other, fighting on opposite sides for interests of the different colonial empires as during World War I. The unified Ukrainian state, however, didn't last long. In December 1920, the Ukrainian SSR was established as a part of the Soviet Union, comprising mostly of the territory of the Ukrainian People's Republic, while the territory of the West Ukrainian People's Republic became part of Poland. In 1939, as a result of Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the West Ukrainian People's Republic became also part of the USSR. The most significant and memorable action marking Ukraine's Day of Unity took place on 21st January 1990, when anticipating collapse of the USSR Ukrainian patriots united to build human chain between eastern and western Ukraine. This chain became a symbol of united Ukraine. According to the different estimates, 1 to 3 million Ukrainians joined their hands that day to create a single chain unifying Donbass, Kyiv and Lviv. Since then, human chains became a traditional element of celebrating the Day of Unity all over Ukraine. The act was deeply determined historically and relied on the long-standing dream of Ukrainian nation about an independent, united national state. It became a powerful expression of the will of Ukrainians to ethnic and territorial unity, a testimony of their self-awareness, an important milestone in the process of becoming a political nation. The idea of the unity of the Ukrainian lands acquired state status in the next decades remained a unifying factor and perhaps the only common provisions of the program objectives of all branches of the national liberation movement. The Unification Act granted the completed form to an independent Ukrainian state, contributed to overcoming the remnants of the federalism in the mentality of the national political elite. The celebration of the Day of Unity, honoring the founders of the Act of Unification, is not only a public need, but also a moral duty to preserve the bright memory of countless victims that were brought by the Ukrainian people on the altar of independence, unity, statehood of Ukraine. The act was signed by the Ukrainian People's Republic, UNR, and the West Ukrainian People's Republic on 22nd January 1919 at Sofia Square in Kyiv, and symbolized the unity of two separate republics that appeared one Ukrainian territories after the collapse of the Russian and Austro-Hungarian Empire. It is impossible to ignore these days when Ukraine is expelling the army and the influence of another outdated empire, Russian Federation, that the holidays grasps a specific meaning and attention. The next, 8th meeting of the Ukrainian Defense Contact Group, and the so-called Ramstein, will be held on 30 January 2023. The Ramstein format meeting, which unites more than 50 countries throughout the world, was founded with the aim of collective support for Ukraine to meet the defense needs of the Ukrainian army in the face of the full-scale invasion by Russia. The Pentagon previously reported that the heads of defense departments of 54 countries will take part in the 8th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. Ukraine's foreign minister Dmytro Kuleba, by announcing the new Ramstein meeting, stated that Ukraine has high hopes for new decisions from partners regarding defense support and called the meeting very important for announcing new decisions. In the telephone conference, Lambrecht and Austin were discussing, among other things, the current war situation in Ukraine and how to coordinate further military support for Ukraine's defensive war in the preparation of the upcoming meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group on 20th January 2023.
I talked to my American counterpart, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, about further stepping up Germany's comprehensive air defense support by providing a Patriot fire unit, including an ammunition package. This will reinforce the Patriot package that will be provided to Ukraine by the United States. Christine Lambrecht, former Minister of Defense of Germany.
There is one more thing that needs to be explained, however. A group of European leaders are pressuring Berlin to allow German-made tanks to be sent to Ukraine, where they would support efforts to repel a major Russian offensive expected this spring. Recently, the news had that German Chancellor Olaf Scholz set a condition for the US to transfer M1 Abrams and Leopard 2 tanks simultaneously was denied by the German government. We are very happy to hear this. But these news do not speed up the decision to transfer German-made Leopard tanks to Ukraine. Dear Mr. Scholz, while you delay the decision on the transfer of German tanks to the defenders of Europe, the risk of Russian tanks entering Europe increases. And while you are waiting, European partners, including the conscious part of Germany, continue to support Ukraine, amplifying the insistence continuously. At each new Ramstein meeting, more and more significant military and packages are approved.
We are in a decisive phase of the war. Therefore, it is important that we provide Ukraine with the weapons it needs to win. Secretary General of NATO Jens Stoltenberg.
Ukraine has seriously prepared for the meeting and expects positive results. Obtaining weapons to expel the occupiers out of our homeland, armored vehicles are the main issue of the agenda of the 8th Ramstein. Ukraine needs modern Western tanks, IFVs, armored personnel carriers, and armored vehicles for counterattack. Ukraine also has initiated a tank coalition of states. Armed with Leopard tanks are Greece, Denmark, Spain, Canada, the Netherlands, Germany, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Turkey, Finland, and Sweden. The issue of the strengthening and the air defense system of Ukraine with modern SAMs such as SAM-PT and Patriot remains very relevant. And here is a grim but vivid chance for me to explain why. January 18th, 2023, a helicopter crash near a kindergarten in the Kyiv region in Brovary city took 14 dead, including 4 children and 9 people who were on board the crashed helicopter, including the leadership team of Ukraine's Interior Ministry. Interior Minister Denis Monastryskyi, First Deputy Minister Yevgeny Hyenin, and State Secretary Yuri Lobkovich died. The Kyiv sky that day was grey, with a very low visibility. The helicopter that crashed was a Eurocopter EC-225 Super Puma. The Office of the President stated that the leadership of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, who died in the crash in Brovary, flew to one of the hotspots where hostilities had taken place. The Ukrainian Security Services, the ESBU, has launched an investigation into the crash. They say several versions of the tragedy are being considered, and they include violation of flight rule, technical malfunction of the helicopter, and deliberate actions to destroy the helicopter. There has been no suggestion to this point from any other Ukrainian officials about Russian involvement in the crash. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has described the incident as a tragedy. However, even if there was no Russian influence detected, it is undoubtedly the Russian imperial aggression that killed tens of thousands of Ukrainians and increased the death toll in Brovary and is counting. It is not the grey skies, but Putin's maniacal Soviet imperial delusional dream that keeps on killing people in Ukraine and Russia. So, in order to understand the importance of 8th Ramstein and the collective civilized world's ability and necessity To resist dictatorship and barbarity spread by Putin's Russia, we only have to look at one thing: Putin allies' reaction on it.
Tomorrow, at NATO's Ramstein base, the great military leaders will discuss new tactics and strategies, as well as the supply of new heavy weapons and strike systems to Ukraine. And this was right after the forum in Davos, where underdeveloped political party goers repeated like a mantra: to achieve peace, Russia must lose. And it never occurs to any of them poor heads to draw the following elementary conclusion from this: the loss of a nuclear state in a conventional war can provoke the outbreak of a nuclear war. The nuclear states do not lose major conflicts on which their fate depends. I mean, this should be obvious to anyone, even to a Western politician who has retained at least some trace of intelligence. Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia.
How'd you like that? The CEO of the Russian Orthodox Church, Mr. Gundyaev, known as Patriarch Kirill, said, I quote, "The world would end if the West tried to destroy Russia." Of course, such apocalyptic rhetoric is intended to deter the US-led NATO military alliance from getting even more involved in the war. But there's always something more interesting in not what the Kremlin says. I mean, it always is a threat, since the Kremlin simply has no other means of conversation. So we should not be really looking at what the Russian Tsar and his servants are saying, but when they say that. They planned a blitzkrieg recently, remember? A lightning-fast, victorious warfare that will bring Ukraine on its knees, and the laurels of the world's liberator from fascism will go to Putin, the first, the greatest Russian leader and a strategic genius of all times. Imagine now we go back in time and show this very rhetoric to Medvedev himself, where he's literally complaining about Russia's losing the war, the conventional battlefield, thus pathetically resorting to the nuclear devastation of the whole world as a last hope. You know what, Russia? Let me quote your Ministry of Sport.
Let me speak from my heart in English.
A hope for what, Comrade Medvedev? Are you really expecting the world to fall back because you, the bunch of outdated barbarians, are swinging the nuclear club? Then what? Comrade Putin's coronation in Westminster Abbey? American President Joe Biden visits Putin's dacha and waits in the mudroom while Putin, Medvedev and Shoigu polish each other's nuclear warheads to a shine. Biden is impressed. He finally grasps it. Size does matter, and Putin's size is the siziest. Then all drink vodka and amend the United States Constitution as easy as Putin did the same to the Russian Constitution, as if it weren't the nation's most important manifest, but a damn circus show schedule. And so they write, "We, the people, accept Putin as our overlord." But Putin graciously refuses. Then sober Putin, and you know Putin never gets drunk, feeds the wolves, hunts the bears, pets the dragon, and both presidents sit in a German Mercedes, since the Russians still have not managed to produce a normal car, and headed to Kyiv, where the victory parade over Ukraine will be held to the sounds of collapsing and decaying Europe. Was that the hope? Well then, fuck you very much, comrades Medvedev, Putin, Shoigu, Kadyrov, and all other monsters, barbarians and bloodthirsty maniacs who fired missiles at Dnipro city, who filled pits in Bucha, Izum, and other our cities with dead bodies, with their hands tied behind their backs and bullet holes in their napes. Fuck you, and all those who think that the world might be threatened to obey. You're nothing but a bunch of power-addicted fascists who planned a 3 days victorious warfare against Ukraine, yet here you are stuck literally everywhere in the world, resorting to its nuclear destruction because you just can't conquer us on the battlefield. Your public Russian channels are laughing at the helicopter crash and the death of our officials and children in a kindergarten. Fuck you. The leader of your Russian Orthodox Church threatens the world with a nuclear hellfire in the name of Jesus Christ. In fact, declaring that your Russian version of God is as stupid, as cruel and vile as you yourself. Fuck you. Fuck you, Putin's Russia. From the bottom of our Ukrainian hearts. This is the main message of a Ramstein meeting to you, Comrade Medvedev. From the whole free world and me, Henry Keane on UATV channel explaining hard things in easy terms directly from Ukraine. Stay safe and tune for more.